So I was told about this technique a little while ago and I hadn't ever seen anything quite like it, so I thought I had to give it a go for myself. Basically the gist is that you use bleach to etch away some of the colours on your prints to give you this sort of kind of lo-fi damaged look. Before I started, I looked at a couple of tutorials on YouTube and I'll link those below, but I'm also just going to walk you through what I did and hopefully help you avoiding some of the mistakes that I made and hopefully inspiring you to give this a go yourself because it's really fun if you don't mind destroying a few of your prints. So before you start, you're going to need 2 containers. One of them is to hold a mixture of bleach and water. The second one's for holding water for washing the bleach off your print afterwards. I'm using some baking trays, but you could use like a plastic basin. You could use anything really, just as long as it has high enough walls to not spill bleach all over the place. It's useful to have a timer while you're doing this. I was just using the time on the back of my camera. You're gonna obviously need bleach as well. I just used whatever we had in the house, which was this Domestis, which is handy because it's gonna kill all known germs dead, and it's gonna leave my prints smelling citrus fresh. You're also gonna need some clear nail polish to mask your prints, and this is gonna protect some areas that you don't wanna get damaged from the bleach. Obviously, handling bleach is quite dangerous. Don't let any of it get on your skin or in your eyes. Wear gloves and keep a window open if possible just to keep the room ventilated a bit because there can be some fumes. When I started this, I was sure that the bleach was going to be the most dangerous part of this whole thing, but what I wasn't expecting was this nail varnish. This stuff is like lethal. I didn't notice it at all on the first batch because I wasn't spending a lot of time painting it on, but for this second batch, it really hit me. This stuff is like really strong.
Holy shit.
I had a lot more prints that I was originally planning to do this to, but I just had to give up after 5 on this second batch because I just couldn't stay in the same room, and like I couldn't go back into the room for ages afterwards. Felt like I'd been punched in the back of the head. It's really bad.
Ooh. Okay.
So yeah, definitely recommend good ventilation for when you're masking these pictures. Even more than the bleach, as it turns out. Secondly, I can't really guarantee that this will work on every type of print. All of my prints are in a matte finish and they were done in like a photo lab, so they're like done on an optical printer, they're not like inkjet or anything. I've read that this might not work as well on glossy prints and that it might not even work at all on inkjet prints, but I can't say that for sure because I didn't have any to try out myself. Your mileage may vary, but a lot of this is really experimental and kind of just, it's not very scientific, so it could work. It'll definitely do something. Most of the photos I chose for this already had some issues to begin with, like light leaks or missed focus. There were photos that I didn't really care about destroying.
You're officially pardoned from life.
And as well, I mean, I have the original negatives and in some cases digital scans as well, so I have copies. I ended up doing 2 separate batches, and I'll explain why, because the first batch had a lot of issues. So here's how you do it. If you want to mask some areas of your prints, do that first, obviously. Just paint clear nail varnish onto wherever you don't want the bleach to affect. Submerge your print and rock it back and forth every so often just to keep an even spread of bleach over the top of the photo. If you were to graph the damage the bleach does to your print against time, what you'll see is there's a really long time where not a lot is happening, and then there's this really quick spike where you have a few seconds between, oh, that's starting to look interesting, and oh no, it's ruined. But the first thing you're going to really see is that the edges of the print start to get worn away first. You'll see it on like contrasting edges of like highlights to dark areas, you'll see it there. It affects the color blue first, and then it seems to affect greens, and then it seems to affect oranges and yellows and reds after that. So you'll definitely notice a lot of the shadowy areas get removed and a lot of the blue color get removed. A lot of these prints have kind of a pinkish orange hue to them in general, just because all the blue's been taken out of them. When it's done, take it out and dunk it in the water bath a couple of times and then let it drip off, and then lay it out to dry. Now here's some of the issues I had with the first batch. So I lashed in way too much bleach. I poured in a good bit and then I poured in some water, and then I was like, that doesn't seem like it's gonna be enough, so I added some more. So that turned out to be a big mistake. So what happened was the bleach was acting on the prints way too fast and I didn't really have enough time to react. Second issue was I really rushed the masking part of this and it ended up being very sloppy. Last problem with the first batch was I laid them flat to dry, and you can see that especially along the edges of most of them there's blue from where like the blue pigment was running off, and it just stayed on the print and then dried in. So for the second batch I used way less, probably like less than half the amount of bleach. I spent a good amount of time masking the day before. And lastly, I stood them up vertically to dry overnight so that hopefully most of the water with the blue pigment in there would wash off. To give you an idea of how big a difference the concentration made, this print from the first batch went from fine to completely destroyed in 1 minute 24 seconds, whereas this print from the second batch took 7 minutes and 27 seconds, and it ended up with a much more subtle effect. So you end up with way more fine control when you use a lower concentration of bleach. That being said, my graph from earlier still applies. There's definitely a huge amount of time where nothing noticeable is happening, and then a relatively short amount of time where everything happens, so you still need to keep an eye on it. And with all of this combined, I think the second batch was a lot more successful than the first batch. Most of the prints are a bit more subtle than the first batch just because they weren't completely fried. And my favourite print out of all of these, it's kind of the only one that I think I'd call a success, was this one of the palm trees, just because it wasn't completely demolished by bleach, and like I kind of like the effect it has on the leaves. You can definitely notice this effect on contrasting edges, and because these are trees, there's a lot of contrasting edges going on, and it kind of gives it this sort of blue-red 3D sort of stereoscopic effect, which I think is really cool. Second favourite would probably be this one of the alley. It's a super subtle effect. You can just kind of see some red streaks going through the middle of it, but I think it kind of adds to the kind of Blade Runner-y kind of look that the picture had to begin with. I kind of like it. Yeah, the rest of them are terrible. Your mileage will definitely vary. You can just see that like most of the colour has been completely stripped out of most of these, and they just look like deep fried memes at this point. While I was working on this video, I put out a call to the rest of Photosock to give this a go for themselves and send me their results. And our webmaster Mark came through and sent me some scans, and he absolutely killed it. A couple of them have that deep fried thing that a couple of mine have, but he's been able to get some amazing colours out of these. These two are definitely my favourite. They look like digital art or like watercolour paintings or something. Even the colours that he's allowed to come through with his masking complement the colours produced by the bleach process, like the oranges and the yellows and the pinks really go well with this kind of cyan colour on this lamp. And I have no idea how he was able to make the sky that colour. And I'm a really big fan of the creative use of masking in some of these, like this one here. We've kind of gotten this checkerboard effect by masking individual prints and leaving the rest of them uncovered. I just think these are amazing. If you're going to take anything away from this, maybe take my tutorial as a rough guideline and use these prints as inspiration for what you can do with this process. This one of our treasurer James really gives me some ideas. Like maybe you can mask out an entire photo except for a strip above the person's eyes and just let the bleach work on that. I think that would be pretty cool. Like I remember the poster for the movie Parasite had like strips in front of the actor's eyes, and I wonder how that would look if you were to do something like this instead of just masking them out. So thanks for watching. Please do give this a go if you get a chance. It's really interesting, it's fun. And I haven't seen much of this out there on Instagram at all, so it doesn't seem like it's been done to death yet, so you can get some unique looking photos up there. Anyway, that's all I got. See ya.